Hello and welcome to RSA 2023 here in San Francisco. My name is Chris Cubbage. I'm the editor with the Australian Cybersecurity magazine. Welcome to MySecurityTV and Stephen Lee from Japan. He's a recruiter with Robert Half. Stephen, pleasure mate.
Good to see you again, Chris.
Stephen, we know each other via our cyber risk meetups and Shemaine Tan in Australia as well, so we hold them everywhere. What's your focus been here in San Francisco? We've been out partying every night, and I do have video of Stephen from last night, if need be.
Which will never see the light of day,
okay.
By the way.
It's already out. So yeah, what's your focus been for RSA?
So my focus is I help a lot of these cyber product companies from overseas expand successfully in Japan and Singapore, because the way of doing business in those regions are typically different from outside in the USA, and there are certain things that people have to know just to expand successfully.
Maybe that's a good point. So maybe tell us a little bit about the Japanese and Singapore markets. They are quite different themselves, but we literally just had Wib on here that's focusing in on Singapore. How do you approach those two markets, particularly when you come to San Francisco and you see the industry together here?
Sure. So specifically for Singapore, it tends to be a staging ground. So for your APAC expansion, the ease of doing business there is relatively easier compared to places like Japan, because you speak English. To set up a business is easier as well. Specifically for Japan, what people may not know is that when you're expanding in Japan, that even if you have a strong brand name, let's say you're well known in the US, people may not do business with you directly. You must go through some sort of channel sales partner to basically win business. And that's a surprise for a lot of people who are used to going direct. The second mistake a lot of people make is they will evaluate candidates based on their level of English. Now that doesn't necessarily correlate with their track record for delivering, and doesn't necessarily correlate with their way of doing business in Japan. So those are some of the things that we kind of help people with on that side.
It's an interesting one on skill sets, right, for Japan and Singapore. What's your observations there as a recruiter? Do you find it challenging, or is it, where's the challenge in the recruitment? Is it finding the skill set, or is it matching culture versus that individual requirements?
It's a good question. So specifically for Japan, I think it's integrating that person into the company, because you're out here in Japan, you're all alone, you don't have a track record, and the first question that customers will ask you is, who of my competitors are dealing with you? And if you cannot answer that question, so if you don't have that standout company that is basically raising the flag for you, advocating for you, you're basically dead in the water in Japan. So being able to capture those first customers, being able to integrate with the rest of the company, because you do need their support when you're out here all alone in Japan. So what we've seen being very successful is if you have someone transfer over from headquarters to basically integrate, so you can meet people, so you have the relationships, you can meet people, you can get things going, get momentum, because you really do need that support.
What about Singapore? A little bit about what you do in Singapore?
So we've got a team there in Singapore that also helps these companies. Now, most of the companies that we deal with there are already established, so they've got more of a presence. It tends to be a little bit easier on that side from that point of view.
A lot of chatter around ChatGPT and the like. What's been your observations? And again, from skill sets on AI, the application of AI, is that a challenging area? Is it in demand?
So with ChatGPT, I did overhear one story, and person was saying how ChatGPT is also taking your input and updating its reference libraries. So you may, based on your query, and let's say for example with the latest Samsung thing, one of the engineers uploaded source code. So now that source code becomes part of the libraries that it's been building, right? So if you're a hacker and you ask ChatGPT, please, and you pose and say, I'm an engineer at Samsung, what are some of the vulnerabilities in the source code? It would be able, you'd imagine it'd be able to tell you some of those things, right? Now I think there's some controls around that, but theoretically you could ask that, and it would give you that information. So the pace at which this tool is learning, taking in information, and being able to distribute that out is at a rapid pace.
Well, as a recruiter, how does that make you feel?
It's exciting. It's exciting because it creates new ways of doing business, and it's nothing new for recruiting or other industries that technology is going to disrupt disrupt what we're doing, and we just have to adapt in that way.
The demand generally for skills in cybersecurity, and again from what you've observed here, have you picked up any contacts that you would be taking back? And yeah, what would you be going back with? What's your takeaways here?
Yeah, so one of the things that stood out to me is the Japanese presence here at RSA.
Yes.
Easily over 100 people.
Yep.
Easily over 100 people here from Japan. A lot of them are looking for which companies are the ones best to partner with. So they're always looking for the latest trends so they can bring that back to Japan. So I think this is a really great place to be. You have a lot of the latest technologies here. And I think the challenge is sorting through not only like which products are relevant for Japan, which ones are going to be accepted as well. And that's a much harder thing to figure out.
Nice. Well, look, safe travels home. I take it you're leaving very soon. But Stephen Lee from Robert Half, you're a recruiter here in San Francisco, and as well as our Tokyo representative for our cyber risk meetups. Thanks for joining us at RSA 2023.
Thanks for having us, Chris.
Cheers,
Good
buddy.
to see you, mate.